Time to look at new opportunities. Mr. Roji, as our CEO and founder, and your 10 years plus of auto car sales experience, you know better than anyone that now is the time for a disruptive move in the auto sector, in the sales department, and we have the proposition today to get you there. So the CarStar company. Who are we? We are your internal finance team. I am Matt. I'm joined by Logan and Dustin. And today we're here to propose the solution to you about implementing that vending machine technology and sales process into your firm to rocket you forwards. Firstly, is this project viable? Was this vending machine something that makes sense that we wanted to implement moving forward? We decided that it is, and the impact that it has more than anything is market disruption. It is time to stand out. It is time to grab your foothold in this marketplace and really show your competitors that you are who to fight with in the marketplace. Why can this project be implemented? The development of this vending machine can be completed in 1 year. To let them know that you are here, we are here to take the sales that we can through this innovative new type of sales, and to do so by implementing firstly in Houston, Texas. As a Canadian firm based out of Toronto, it might make sense to start off in a large Canadian city. However, what we're seeing right now with rideshare effects and with public transportation booming in major metropolis areas such as Vancouver, Calgary, and Toronto, we believe that Houston, Texas, being more spaced out and not so centered all about downtown core and being more spread out rurally would be the best option for used car sales in order to skyrocket that going forward. So, the stakeholders in this event, current shareholders of your firm are already happy with the growth that they are seeing, but it is not to be said that you cannot do better in the future. By implementing something as disruptive and innovative as the vending machine car sales technology, we believe that you can only increase their share in your firm and increase the value that they have being part of who you are. The CarStar company itself, working there as we do, we want to make sure that we can improve and grow year over year to the max of our abilities. The assumptions and the analytics that we were given show strong growth forecasts. We want to make sure that we not only hit those marks, but exceed them. And lastly, the investors in our business only want to see profitability rise, which will only be done by choosing the right supplier from where, when are we buying them from, and how can we implement this as diligently as possible. So first we want to take a look at our company in the current standing to make sure that this deal made sense from where we are now to where we'd like to be. Firstly, we believe that we have such a unique value proposition in that the fact that we are a one-stop shop. Consumers see what they like, they can test it out, they can purchase it there, and receive the financing all together, literally at the one stop, making it useless to go from one store to get financing, to check out your car, to maybe want to ride it, whereas we were getting a virtual spin. We're literally allowing our consumers to check out every aspect of the car pre-purchase in the trial period of that week, allowing you to drive it, allowing you to see, is this car for me, before taking you back for that full refund, which is unheard of in the marketplace. Off the lot, if you've driven it, it's almost impossible to take back because you've committed to that loan. Whereas here at CarStar, we believe to give you a chance to show that what we believe as great value. So that disruptive potential, we want to show more consumers that virtual spin in that vending machine process. By seeing off to the side of a highway of a major area in Houston, seeing a vending machine tower of luxury and like comical cars that are used in the marketplace gives a sign that this used car store really knows what they're doing. They really know how to enhance value and show why their cars are being up there with the Lexus, with the BMWs, and the major truck brands in the Houston area. In the market right now, why this makes sense from a macroeconomic standpoint, we'd like to point out that right now is a 17-year unemployment low in North America, making high consumer confidence as the wages are outgrowing inflation and people are having more money to spend on this car upgrade to get to their new job and back. And we want to make sure that the used vehicle sales market is expanding year over year, and only will this happen if we introduce disruptive tech and sales methods that challenge the status quo. from that company analysis, we took a look at the assumptions that were given to us and saying that, okay, we have been improving, but what is the goal moving forward? What is 2019's plan, and how are we going to get there? So we saw that from 2017 to 2018, we had a roughly 170% increase, but now with the new projections, with this vending machine model implemented, we're seeing a 240% increase year over year of vehicles sold, which is a massive metric proving that people are interested in this idea, we have the value point to get them this idea, and we want to sell it to them. The inventory availability is up another 124% with this projection. From a consumer standpoint, seeing 5,000 cars on a lot website to 11,000 would make me think this company must be doing well if they have so many different products from different models to offer me. Nextly, the unique visitors is more of a Google Analytics web traffic data mark, where we see that more people are learning about the brand's name and about the brand's equity in order to propel it forward even more. And lastly, the time to sale is down 20%, which may look as a negative metric, but we're actually decreasing the amount of time it took you from that first search of the car you wanted to get it driving in your neighborhood. Before, we were looking at about 90 days from time of information search, criteria, and choice of alternatives to the actual purchase. Now we've gotten that down to 75% with new traffic models and with further advancements in the offerings. And lastly, the total gross profit per unit is up nearly 250% with these new projections. This can only be achieved by choosing models off car auctions from both US and China lots. We want to be able to offer commercial vehicles like trucks and smaller cars, along with luxury vehicles like the Lexus and BMW that sells at that little bit higher price point, but still in the used car sales demographic. Lastly, we want to go through those three alternatives like I had mentioned about where we should be buying these cars off the lot to give it to the consumer at the best possible price. The first place that we wanted to check was the United States. And firstly, it was given to us that Donald Trump had announced that he would like to decrease tariffs on North American trade in order to get more sales into Canada from American producers. These foreign markets in America want more people to be buying their cars out of America to stimulate US growth economy. So by using them, we can get a strong trade history already between the North Americas of Canada and America, realizing that synergy, as well as a strong gross margin on products from this place. Nextly, we'd like to discredit Mexico as a possible supplier of these used cars, as they have so many regulatory compliance costs and multiple maintenance checks. The added cost relative to China and America in the cost department outweighs this as a decision criteria because it is not feasible anymore after paying the shipping costs and all the regulatory reasons to get it through Mexico up to the United States to sell into Canada or the States. Lastly, the low quality ratings out of these cars being sold from Mexico, they're more of the Crown Vics and the older kind of vehicles that aren't selling as predominantly important to the younger demographic market. Our last supplier that we'd like to look at is China. China, being so far away as we know, has a long lead time. And to think about that as the only negative wouldn't make sense because these gross margins from these higher luxury cars outweigh that waiting time and outweigh that cost of consumers to think it's going to take longer time to get here, but it's going to be at a cheaper price, it's going to be more quality backed, and you're actually paying less in regulatory costs as the supplier has incentivized us with 6 months of no shipping costs to get that lot sale off of the dock. So what I was leading to say is that America and China lead to profitability as a car career choice compared to the Mexico versions. Now I'm going to pass it off to Dustin to go through how we decided on the best feasible way to move forward with this project.
Thanks very much, Matt. So Matt just took us through a little more of the context for how the deal was to be considered itself. And what I would like to do is go through a more rigorous analysis in the decision criteria to find a suitable alternative for your company to take. And then Logan's going to take it out after me for a detailed recommendation plan, as well as some risks and mitigation. So the first thing I wanted to open with is Mr. Tosi, as you probably know, in the used car business, it's about building a family. And we are part of your family additionally. So we would like to give you the strongest recommendation today that you can use to have effective leverage in your company, CarStar. We would like to provide you with the best balance of alternatives as well as the best consideration of all the risks involved to make sure that you are best informed to make a decision. One thing that you have expressed to us, and that we do agree with as well, Mr. Coasty, is that you would like to maintain majority control. So currently you have a 51% stake in common stock, and we would like to avoid any other dilution of that ownership stake that is going to be influencing some of our decisions today. As well, we wanted to maintain the initial investor concerns. The initial investors also maintain that we agree with Mr. Coasty that they would like to not dilute their own firm ownership as well. And seeing that growth, we seem to be happening so great, as Matt has gone over with the projections, 240% year-over-year increases is something to really be said for your company, we believe. We want to make that happen. So we're going to go into the actual decision matrix itself. So there's three main opportunities that we consider to be able to help us raise the capital required to take over this vending machine venture, and there's also some associated risks with each. We considered a Bank of Nova Scotia credit facility extension. We also considered an initial public offering for your firm, and lastly, the private investor of Garcia. Weighing the Venice's criteria, we do see things such as in the Garcia outlook, there is a prior relationship to be had, and there's something to be said for that. However, the callable nature of the loans, as well as the chance of an equity investment being taken in a firm, could dilute you, and we are not too certain on that. Eventually, after evaluating your strong performance in the past and projecting this into the future with the plan that we do have in place, we believe that the best possible extension for you today would be to extend your credit facility, and we're going to go over a really detailed analysis of that. So that's the decision matrix. The question today is, should the company develop the vending machine itself? So we wanted to make sure, or just to see if this was feasible. The pictures that we were provided on the exhibits themselves provide a very great outlook for what your company and our company could have as a vending machine, with beautiful cars in the windows and glass all around. We want to make sure the right products are in this vending machine to be able to sell to the customers. We want to make sure that the experience itself is optimized, and we believe we have a really good plan in place. The first thing that we did, the major consideration between the alternatives here was the actual development of the software. So there is the potential for your firm itself to develop the software, and then there's also the potential to license it outside at $150,000 per month on the outside route, and a 1-year payment of about $5 million or $7 million, $7 million for the firm itself. One thing that we did note here is that $150,000 per month, when you translate it through the years that we calculated to get, you would get about $5.4 million in spend for the third-party development versus $7 million for the own firm. Now, there is a $1.6 million difference there, but we would like to point out that in exchange for this $1.6 million difference, you get the added benefit of having this software completed in 1 year as opposed to 3 years. You also have the ability to license it to other third parties after, as it will be your intellectual property, and you'll have the ability to put in customer relationship management. Now, at the forefront of our minds in this decision is the fact that eventual purchase decisions happen for used cars, and there are nice margins there, but we need to make sure those investors come, or those buyers of those cars come again and again. And the only possible way that we can think to recommend to you today on that front is to implement it one day, not necessarily right now if the costs don't make sense. We would love to see customer relationship management implemented. We believe that managing relationships would be huge. So it's just correct. Just in conclusion there, you pay $1.6 million more for 3 years saved, and you get the control. You get the ability to license it later. You get that customer satisfaction for repeat purchases, and you also get the chance to tailor it yourself and own that technology. A revenue stream could be derived for this as well. So in 2018, we went to your balance sheet to source original financing for this potential vending machine we'd like to place in Houston, Texas. And we found that your current assets are approximately $500,000. Current liabilities a little bit less than that. You have a working capital surplus of $188,000 that could be used in order to pursue this recommendation. There is something to be said as well that part of this $188,000 is current inventory that is sitting in your warehouses and in current storage facilities, but we do believe that you would be able to effectively sell off even a portion of this and be able to finance the building of this machine. So just to go a little over the IPO analysis, as I have previously mentioned, the Class A voting common stock would be sold under this alternative. You would lose voting. We would like to emphasize here the difference between ownership and control of the firm. Control, we believe, is at the forefront of any great investor's mind and any great leader's mind. So we would like to skew away from that possibly. There's also the additional option in the IPO for the underwriters to purchase more Class A stock at their discretion, and we believe that recommending you go down this route would not be conducive conducive to your firm goals as well as your long-term strategy. Currently, you have a 51% control of the firm. There is the possibility to sell preferred shares, but we'd like not to go with that at this time. It's not aligned with company values. The Garcia analysis, it does provide $25 million in face value and a good rate, and there is a current relationship there, but again, the tend towards equity with this investment makes us hesitant to recommend that to you today. The next portion was the Bank of Nova Scotia analysis at the potential to get $75 million face value, good rate. We would recommend pursuing this in the future after you have made some cash up from that working capital discrepancy that I previously pointed out for the vending machines took place in Houston. So that's a little bit of a recommendation, and I would like to now pass it over to Logan, who's going to take us into a more holistic view.
So Dustin did a great job of going in depth with financials, but I'd just like to take an opportunity to kind of form one single cohesive recommendation for you that might be a little bit easier to digest. And this, of course, is, as we had mentioned, to pursue the vending machine project, as it is viable indeed. Moving on, we'd like to commit and proceed with the project by building the software internally. Dustin did a great job of kind of mentioning some of the pros and cons between the two options, and it seems clear to us, based on our analysis, that internally developing the software for this machine and for this location would be your best option. And finally, we believe that Houston, Texas would be an appropriate first location, and this is of course because there is known to be disposable income in Houston, and that is reflected in our high sales in that region. That being said, we also have high profit margins within pickup trucks, which are characteristic to Houston. Furthermore, as Matt had previously mentioned, Houston is a little bit more rural, a little bit more spread out, so people have the need for cars. Furthermore, they're less affected by the burden of ride sharing or public transportation. So we think it would be very appropriate, and further expansion could be considered after that. So what does this recommendation look like as far as implementation is concerned? Well, we came to a threefold implementation plan for this recommendation that we're proposing today, and that includes immediate, 1 year, and 3 year. So as far as immediate is concerned, we think you should assess the balance sheet with internal aid for investor confidence. So although we are your internal finance team, it can't hurt to get another fresh set of eyes on it just to ensure that we are hitting all the correct marks. Moving forwards, we think that if you finalize Houston land assessment and confirm Houston as a location, it will really help jumpstart your further process. And finally, engage in internal software development team. So we do have somewhat of an internal development team, but expanding it might be in our best interest moving forwards. This will cost about $7 million in 1 year, and we had talked about considering going to a third party. However, we have confirmed that this is your best option moving forward. 1 year from now, we hope to finalize the Houston vending machine project. We think that kind of speeding up the process will help confirm our position in the market as a disruptive entity, and then we can further expand. We suggest that you begin initial assessment of product offering, and that if it is suitable for further development into the market, that you do so accordingly. Finally, we recommend within this 1 year time period that you look into software licensing and CRM implementation. Of course, you will have been doing this prior to this. However, with the location actually built, it's looking to put it into action. And in years 3 and beyond, upon success of vending machine in Houston, which we are confident will happen, look into further development into perhaps other cities, potentially in other countries, similar to Houston, maybe outside of the metropolis areas, but that are still have some income that they can spend on these cars. Assess longer-term viability of the vending machine, as it will be under operation for around 2 years, so you can get a little bit of a better look at how viable the project is. And finally, pay down your outstanding liabilities, which is a good move at any point in time. I would just like to mention that with any alternative, there are risks and mitigations involved. However, we would just like to reassure you that we come to the conclusion that we believe to have the least risk and the risks that are most easily mitigated. So auto lenders, as you had mentioned, actually are in a good position for this, but there are still risks. So the first would be an increased risk of consumers getting new vehicles. We will appeal to these people with the price and innovative technology. Ride-sharing effect, which, as we had mentioned, is not relevant in Houston, and vending machines does not attract sales. We don't think this will be a big problem. However, we will be able to expand on our current brand equity and our current reputation, and just the whole innovation factor behind it. Some key performance indicators that you might be concerned with or want to see within the near future is positive reviews, which we think you can attain, demand for other vending machines, and hitting the projections that aren't exactly conservative that we have done for 2019 projections. So Matt's just going to wrap up a little bit of what we talked about.
And that's why we look forward to shaking this one with you.
Okay, judges, you have 5 minutes for Q&A. I'll begin the timer when you start your question.
So, can I, one thing I'm wondering is, how are these vending machines going to drive additional volumes? Just so you know kind of what I'm driving at, Houston's about 30% of your sales right now. It looks kind of tapped out to me. You have a ton of similar markets, so we're not doing anything. So I just want to know how we're going to squeeze more blood out of this still and get more out of Houston with that.
So based on our analysis, we actually don't think Houston is at its capacity. That being said, we do think maybe instead of increasing sales, which we do believe it will do, it will make sales more efficient, make it more ability for us to disrupt this market and have people continually purchase and have returning customers. Furthermore, we think the whole innovation effect of things not only will disrupt the Houston market, but allow for further expansion upon being able to see the great success within Houston.
So why will we sell more by having these vending machines?
As I mentioned, it's just sort of the whole kind of technology-driven movement towards nowadays. We think that people in Houston do have disposable income and that they are willing to kind of try the new technology out. So if someone's kind of considering buying a new car but don't want to do the traditional methods, this would really incentivize someone to take part.
Do you think it's the benefit of the visibility of the towers that will drive more eyes towards?
We do, exactly. And I think the visibility will kind of send a shockwave around the nation and around the world. So that will lead to further expansion in the future.
So in the vending machine, there's only 50 units per, right? So that's not really going to move the needle quite a bit because last year's sales was 80,000.
We just think that the actual qualitative aspects of the visibility of these new vehicles and any associated press and publicity would be very beneficial to the brand. Expanding any more vending machines after that could also prove to be fruitful, we do believe.
And just on the Houston point, you guys mentioned that Houston is very spread out. How is that convenient for customers to actually go there and pick up the cars? I think, to me, it seems like it's just the initial buzz that it's very exciting to do, but is that really what consumers are looking for?
So they have been said to think that the auto market is being kind of stagnant as people are moving more towards ride sharing with the Uber and the platforms becoming more popular. So we believe that starting in the Houston area where things are more spread out, more people are more inclined to drive to their commutes to work and such like that. So by moving towards areas that are more spread out and more rural, we would incentivize more car sales instead of those farther commutes with ride sharing as opposed to the more advanced cities. Does that answer your question?
You guys have a sense of the financial projections over the short medium?
Yeah, so we have the projections that were given to us by you as well, and we did incorporate those into our analysis, just looking at it holistically. But we do maintain the belief that we do think that a lot of great stuff can happen from this. So we don't have that actually incorporated in anything physically right now.
I like the fact that you had KPIs to kind of measure success. If it is successful, where would you build next after Houston?
We were really looking into the greater Toronto area. The actual downtown core in Toronto is very public transit heavy. We have those public transit lanes for people carpooling and whatnot. So the greater Toronto area is the ones that are commuting to that downtown core and have those working spaces in that business area. So one in the greater Kingston, or something like that, where a lot of visibility for traffic for not only the people going into the store, but for the visibility for the brand as a whole.
The cost was to build.
So it's $5 million in capital expenditures, and then there's a bunch of additional costs on that, and then the only differentiating factor is the amount spent on software development. So we have here broken down by cost.
Is that
Sorry, so yeah, so here, on the next slide we have the summarization of all of it. So it's $7 million if you pursue the internal development for the software itself, and then it's $5.4 million if you go with third party. Yeah.
So other contractors, $9 million.
So this is in excess of it. This is how much you would spend on software itself, and then you have to add the other ones onto it. So it comes up to $42.6 million for normal, and then approximately $45.4.
Oh, right now, 42 million there. 50 cars each time. You have car maybe $20,000 each. That's 42. That's about what? 5-6 cars a day that you have to get out.
So we did want to mention on that as well that the
primary focus of our product offering. For those, would be the pickup trucks, which are the highest margin sales by category that the company does sell, and we do believe the qualitative aspects in addition to this more than make up the cost.
Let's Q&A, guys.